is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. With a discography described as flawless, 12 studio albums, 12 compilations, 4 EPs, 43 singles with accumulating 25 top 75 singles, 2 Kerrang awards, beating Muse and Stereophonics, I might add, and over 5 million sales worldwide. Welsh band Feeder are heading down under for the first time in 14 years to give fans a taste of what made them love Feeder all those years ago. Buck Rogers, Feeling a Moment, Just Today, Just the Way I'm Feeling. I could go on forever. The Feeder Juggernaut is on the way, and we're about to chat with the frontman Grant Nicholas about their Long Way to the Top. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, I'm just having a few strong coffees. It's yeah.
What time is it?
It's not too bad now. It's like 5 to 8 in the morning, but I sort of started I've been up since about 6 doing stuff. Yeah.
You'll have to adjust to the time zone difference when you head to Australia. Only a few weeks to go.
It's either early morning ones or I'll have to do them late at night. But I actually prefer doing it in the morning.
Now, welcome to the show. It's been quite a journey since you began in 1994. I should say that you actually started out as a band called Real. What was the reason for the name change?
It's not a great name, Real. I mean, basically, in fact, I think we started a little bit earlier than 94, but as people know us, say, with Taka, I think it was around 94. But basically, Real, well, it went through 2 different spellings. It was Real with 2 E's, like a reel of tape, and then then it got changed to EA, because I think when we started off, we were kind of, I think our music appealed to a bit more kind of skateboard kind of kids and like surfing thing. And I think I cheekily saw the name like Real Skateboards in California somewhere. And it must have been in the back of my mind. So I kind of nicked it.
Yeah.
It was just stupid. Thinking, hey, Real, it'd be cool. In fact, I've still got like the sticker on my guitar, which is in the other room actually, which is bizarre. Talking about that, and it's been on there since then. So, but yeah, and it was a name that was always sort of planned on changing. I thought I wasn't quite sure if it was like the right name, and we were trying to come up with a name that hadn't been used, and I came up with the name a swim feeder. It's like a thing you use in fishing, and I took the swim bit off, which became the name of our first mini album. And then just the feeder. And I think at the time it was a lot of Britpop bands. You had loads of bands that had that. There's always a trend for names, isn't there?
There is. Yeah.
I think even more so back then. And I think because we were like this sort of 3-piece band, we weren't Britpop. We were kind of heavier than that. We weren't sort of total grunge. We were influenced by, UK and sort of American, but we kind of were more on the heavier side. But we wanted to get on the bills with these kind of indie bands because we wanted, to get exposure and to, record companies, to come and see us play and stuff like that. So I think I picked Feeder because it just looked good on paper, and it just sat well next to bands like, like the Breeders or like Sleeper or whoever it was. And it just, I know it's crazy, but it was as simple as that.
It is crazy. I read once that Keane came up with, before when they were trying to think of a name, they came up with the name Coldplay and didn't like it very much and said to Chris Martin, "Oh, you can have that one. It's not going to do anything anyway." Which it did. But it kind of shows that, I mean, that's who you are. That's the band. It wasn't the first band that you were in, though. You were actually, you played the trumpet, and you joined your first school band, which was Sweet Leaf, named after a song by Black Sabbath. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's my first proper band. I was in a band before that where you couldn't really call it a band. It was like I think I could play like one string, and we had this guy on piano. Oh, was it a 2-piece? I can't remember. Like drum. We were like 10 or 11. It was awful, and we had to play at in the school hall in front of the parents. At the end, and I just sang the song I wrote. It was a simple song, but I suppose thinking back, it was almost like we were like an early White Stripes because we were like a 2-piece or something. It was just drums and guitar, so it was kind of ahead of its time. That band was called The Flames.
Right.
So I think that was the very first one, but first like proper band, was Sweet Leaf, and I'm a big Black Sabbath fan, so that's obviously where the name came from.
You're still a Black Sabbath fan after all these
Yeah,
years?
yeah, I love Sabbath. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I play guitar, I used to love like Tony Iommi, and his riffs and his style. Because he does do lead, but I always see him as being more of a riff guy,
Yeah.
cool stuff. And when you're learning guitar, I could play along with some of those Black Sabbath songs. I'm not saying they're easy to play, but they were,
No.
they're not musos, so they were quite good if you were learning guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a legacy that they created way back in the
Yeah.
70s, you know?
Like Sabbath got great sound to them, and there's so many bands have been influenced by Sabbath. I mean, including us. I
Yes.
mean, like yeah. I mean, they're a great band, and there's, listen to that early stuff. There's a great energy there as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they were definitely massively influential band. You know, um, yeah.
How did your musical influence change throughout the years? I mean, you started. Were there a lot of peers in Welsh music, Welsh rock that were sort of
Not
stand
Welsh.
out?
I mean, the thing is, I'm Welsh, so obviously, John was Welsh, but I sort of moved to London when I was, about 19, 20. So I've been living here longer than I lived in Wales. So, you know, I'd say my influences are more kind of universal than that.
Yeah,
We obviously mentioned Black Sabbath. I mean, yeah, there's always been some great. I mean, Wales is a very musical place, and there's a lot,
yeah,
people like music there, and there's always been lots of, whether it's choirs and Welsh, all sorts of stuff, and then you've got people like Tom Jones and stuff like that. There's Shirley Bassey. There's always been like legendary singers and stuff and artists in Wales, and obviously loads of great bands as well. Some that never really got discovered.
mm,
But I think it's a different world now, obviously, with the internet and everything like that. But in those days, it was quite hard. So I decided to move to London. I worked in a
yeah,
recording studio for 3 years. And then, because it was kind of the place to get noticed,
yeah,
Uh, if a trend blows up and there's a band from Wales, and then suddenly you get a few more that come on board because it was
yeah,
like the Welsh scene, wasn't there? Going back,
yes, yes.
but we were never really part of that because we'd already been in London for a while.
Because you had like the Stereophonics.
Yeah, they were part of,
They were
like,
huge.
Catatonia stuff,
Yeah.
but we were never really part of that scene. We just didn't really, not because we didn't want to be. We kind of sort of missed out on that a little bit, and I think we never really overplayed the whole Welsh thing to say, oh well, we're Welsh as well. So I'm really proud to be Welsh, but we didn't feel like we wanted to jump on any sort of trend, so we just carried on doing our own thing, really. But Yeah, I mean, there's always been great bands in Wales. I just think it was at the time, certainly then, it was very hard to get discovered, which is why I moved to London.
It's an interesting thing. You were talking about trends. I mean, it's a hard thing for artists to stay relevant and to keep on top of the trends. What do you think it is that keeps Feeder relevant in 2025?
We never followed the trends. I always thought that we got supported by, Feeder could have been an NME band if we maybe been picked up early,
Yeah,
but they were never that into maybe the sort of band we were at the time. But we got picked up by, a lot of rock magazines, and I was
yeah,
surprised because we didn't really look like this sort of really heavy rock band. I guess image-wise, we fitted in more with like Britpop and stuff like
yeah.
that. We're more indie kind of rock band, and still are in some way.
But the sound was definitely a lot harder and a lot edgier.
Oh yeah, a lot heavier. We got compared. We were getting comparisons with a lot of American bands like the Smashing Pumpkins and like
Yeah,
Nirvana and stuff like that. But we also had this other side to us that was a bit more. We were kind of almost like mid-Atlantic. People described our sound. We were kind of a mixture of those sort of
yeah,
British influences from
yes,
Beatles and through to, Sabbath, through to some of the American stuff. I listened to a lot of AOR growing up as well.
yeah,
Which is why I love melodies.
yes,
People say, "Oh, American rock's so alphabet." There's some great songwriting in that. So and that's all part. That's all gone into Feeder, into me as a songwriter. Sorry, I got off on one now. What were you saying? So,
how do you stay relevant in 2025?
yeah, yeah. So it's relevant. I don't think we ever worried about it.
Yeah,
I think we always felt like we did our thing, and I think if you do it long enough, it becomes relevant. And
yes,
it's all about the songs. If you've
yes,
got a good, doesn't matter whether you're relevant at the time, but people will discover it. It'll get used somewhere. It'll get
yes,
picked up on an advert. It'll be, we just had this really great fan base, and we worked really hard to get to build from 5
Yeah.
people to 10, next gig 20, and we did a really old school, kind of way of doing it, like get their
Yes.
names and everything after each gig. It was very much what people were doing in America at the time, and it was actually down to our manager that's told us here to get this database going, and that was a big help to us actually,
Yeah.
because it enabled us to do our thing. We didn't, and then we realized, people were coming to see us. We were sort of building our own fan base and our own, not trend, but you know what I mean? We were doing it
Yeah.
ourselves. But to answer your question, it's always been about the songs. And I think if you've got songs and you've got songs that people still sing or still remember 10, 20, 30 years after you wrote them, then that was always the goal. And that, so I think we've achieved that on, not every record, but certainly there's always been like one or two that have, that stood the test of time. And I think that's what we've always tried to do. And and it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard to do that because it's not just about the song; it's also about how people support the song at the time.
Yes.
People meeting interview with you or like radio stations, because
Exactly.
radio was massive back then. So if you got a big radio station behind the right song, you could really do well and and sell a lot of records. But now it's a different world. It's all.
It is a different world. It's a completely different world, and I can't see how the difference between back then and now, as a new artist coming along, would be such a hard slog. I mean, you guys did it the hard way. You went, and we talk about a long way to the top. Like you said, getting names at gigs. It's even harder these days.
It is really hard. I mean, it was really hard then. I mean, there was always been loads of bands. It seems like there's it seems like there's like millions of bands around now because everyone's more aware of them. Because everyone can be out there. I mean, anyone can, the stuff out there. You've got streaming and stuff like that. I mean, I have to admit, I do, I've had to embrace it because this is the world we're in. But I do miss the 90s. I have to admit, I do miss that. And just that period of growing up and buying records and just, there was a bit more mystique around music and artists. Everything is like everyone has to sort of wear their. I love to know about bands, but I like to find out about it. Where it's like reading album covers, who did what, and you didn't always know as much. To know, there's just too much information out there now. There's no kind of. I'm a bit cagey. I mean, I don't. There's certain things I don't like doing. I like to keep a little bit of my private life out of what I do with the band. But because I feel as though I'm giving quite a lot just in the songs that that we write, and I feel as though that's a huge part of me anyway. But I think to answer it, it's kind of how you want to play the game. If you want to play that game, that's totally fine. There's some people are very successful and are very good at doing it. We use social media, but I think we just use it in a way that feels right for us. And maybe if I used it more, we'd be more successful. But it just doesn't. I don't know. I'd be just uncomfortable with it.
I think I'm with you. I'm the same. People say, "Oh, use social media," but you go, "Well, it just isn't natural." If I used it to that extent, doing up reels about everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't want to annoy people with our music. Of course, when we're doing tours, we've got records out. You have to let people know about it, and that's one of the only ways now. Because unless you're paying expensive ads in papers, whatever it is, and it is hard, and it's so competitive because it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're big level or small level. There's a million bands out doing the same gig on the same night, whatever. Even getting venues is really hard now, even for big bands. You've got like a waiting list like Brixham Academy, like, oh yeah, you're number 3 in the, out of 5 bands on the hold, and then they'll push each band to see who will commit, and then if you work your way to the top, then maybe you get like the Friday night rather than the Monday night that nobody wants to play.
I agree.
But it's like that for big acts as well. It is that competitive. It's just on a bigger scale, and I mean. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sort of dissing music, because I love doing it. I'm just saying it's just a very different industry now, and just the way things work, and it feels even more competitive. But yeah,
But talking about going out and touring, though, I mean, touring with the crowds that you've got. I mean, have they shaped your live evolution as well, and how you interact with them?
Yeah, I think so. But what's interesting with Feeder is we've got like a new generation of people that are discovering some other bands, from our era, like 90s and stuff. I mean, I don't know if you know. So it seems to be a little bit more of that. You sort of hear it in quite a few new bands, whether it's Bieber Doobie, you can hear a lot of
Yeah.
90s new music for Fontaine's DC and stuff. You can hear a lot of old school, in their style, and I think that's really encouraging. But I'm not saying it's encouraging to hear bands that sound like bands before, but for me, music's like a wheel. It goes round and round. There's something becomes like trendy for a while, and then it's 80s is really in.
Yeah.
Really it's a heavy 90s for a bit, and then and then it'll move to something else. But music's always been like that, and that's fine. I think as long as the songs are good and the artists are good and the bands are good, who cares?
Yeah, have a 14-year-old kid that comes up and goes, "Have you heard about this great band? They're called Led Zeppelin." It's like, mate,
yeah. It's like that. I know, but at least they're discovering them, which is cool.
Yeah.
I mean. And kids. I mean, my kids. They're into all sorts of music now. I mean, they're into everything from like, my son, really got into like Courtney Love and a whole, but he was listening to like K-pop at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, fine, it doesn't matter. It's music. When I was younger, it would be like you're into rock or you're into punk or you're into, it was like that, wasn't it?
That is exactly what it was like. At what point did you realize as a band that you'd made it? I mean, was there a point that you can go back to a memory that you go, yeah,
I'm still waiting for that moment.
I don't know. I'm just going to throw this out there. Chris Martin saying that he loved your album Comfort in Sound, that to me would be a pretty sort of pinch yourself moment, wouldn't it?
I think he did like that record. Yeah,
he did.
What, did you read that somewhere?
I did.
Or did I?
No, I did. Absolutely.
He did. I mean, I got on quite well with Chris, and I think we're not that dissimilar. I mean, I like Coldplay, and a lot of people give them like a really hard time, even though they're one of the biggest rock bands in the world.
Amazing band.
Rock or acoustic rock, whatever we're going to call them, dance rock, or whatever. But they're a great band, and they've never tried to say they're the best at what they do, but they write great songs, and you don't have to get every Coldplay record, but they've got a couple of classic songs you're going to hear in 20 years time, 30 years time, and they're going to be around, whether you like them or not. And they're a great live band as well. I mean, it's a really good show. And I just like songs, and they've got some great songs. But obviously that's a real compliment. I mean, actually, I remember being on tour with them. It was on A Rush of Blood to the Head. And I remember Chris, I was sat in catering, he came behind me, and he was, he sort of hyperactive. He was like tapping me on the shoulder going, "Oh, I love your song, I'll come back around." And he just started singing it to me. And then there was another time where he said, "Oh, I love that song, Comfort and Sound." He started singing the keyboard part on it. It was like quite surreal. But we kind of saw Coldplay sort of, we were kind of sharing a van onto the stages at like a pyramid stage and stuff, and like smaller stages, like back in the day, and they were just on the cusp of getting big. But you could feel something was happening with them, But they've had an amazing career.
Yes.
But yeah, you know what? Any artist saying something good about something you've written and put a lot of time into, it's the ultimate compliment, isn't it?
It is. No, it absolutely is. And it was an interesting album too, Comfort and Sound, because that was the point when John Lee passed away. It was a pretty tough year, 2002 for you.
Well, it was all over really, and when we lost John, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm still going to be writing the songs, but I mean, thank God that I wrote songs, because otherwise I don't know how we would have carried on. But I kind of knew John for years, and we were we were really close, sort of quite competitive in some ways, but he was just a great guy to have around. He could do, I could sit in an interview and let him do a lot of the talking, and he was a bit of a charmer. But and he's an awesome drummer as well. I mean, I'm not just saying that. He was a great drummer. He was just a bundle of energy. He just never got tired. But he, it was a really horrible time, because we were just starting to, make headway in America. As well with our first album did well with High, and that was sort of bubbling away. So we were going to keep, working on America. So that came to a grinding halt. We were getting really successful here on the back of, Echo Park album.
Yeah.
And it suddenly went boom, it was gone. And being a 3-piece band is such a tight sort of unit.
Yeah.
I didn't really know if we wanted to, if we could carry on without him, whether it would be right to. So there was all that going on. And anyway, we took some time out. For some reason, I I kind of lost the plot a bit. I think Taka lost the plot a bit. I think he went back to see his family in Nagoya in Japan.
Yeah.
I didn't see him for a while, and I just went into a studio, which is literally, in fact, I was there yesterday for the first time in 10 years.
Right. Wow.
And it's literally about not even 5 minutes walk from where I am now, which is where a lot of the music happens with Fido. And I just started writing songs, and I literally wrote 10, 11 songs. Taka came back from Japan. We hooked up. He came to the studio. I played him the stuff, and he was like, "Whoa, this has got something. This is really good." And I think we went to the pub, got quite drunk, and that was the moment we decided to continue as a band.
Yeah.
I'd already had like 10, 11 songs, so the album was pretty much there. In demo form.
Yeah.
But I think if I hadn't gone in the studio, I don't know whether we would, if we left it too long, I don't know if we would have carried on. I know it sounds mad, but I think we could have left it too long.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
But you know what, though? Losing John, I think, pushed me as a writer to maybe go into areas that I'd never done before, and I hadn't experienced that before. And I think some of those songs worked well, people hearing them, because they really connected with them. Yeah. And at the time, I wasn't that aware of what I was saying in some of those songs. It just came out. It was like this emotional, musical thing. And, it was a special record. And I'm still really proud of that album. We're re-releasing it, by the way.
Fantastic. One of my favorites. One of my favorite albums. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I basically remastered it. It's coming out in September here.
Oh, nice.
We're on a limited clear blue vinyl, and we're doing a CD that comes with a bonus CD, which has got pretty much all the B-sides from the singles of that time.
Yeah.
And I've reworked a song called Godzilla, which is on the original podcast, which is the heaviest song. It's a little bit of a song on that record, but it's there for a reason. And so I've reworked that one, quite recently in my studio. So I've added some parts to it. It's called Godzilla 2 now. I think it sounds really cool. We sort of put it up to date a little bit. So I didn't want to mess with the chemistry. I didn't want to totally re-record it because I wanted to keep, I didn't want to mess with that record too much. So I kept it. So we kept all the original parts. I just added some extra guitars, some keyboards, a few extra vocals, some percussion. It's just brought it up to date a bit, and it sounds great. And we've also reworked the song called Feel It Again. It was a bit more melodic, kind of pop rock song. A lot of fans sort of liked at the time. We played live once, I think, and it became a kind of B-side. So I've reworked that one, just added a few guitars and tidied it up a little bit, because it was never really mixed properly. So that's going to be on there. We've done orchestral mixes of 3 of the album songs. So it's just like strings, a bit more stripped back. And then there's about 4 or 5 really lo-fi B-sides that I did at the time. Some were done with little drum machines, and some were, so they're quite raw and honest. So I think there's 13 songs on the bonus CD.
Damn it, I'm gonna have to get the record and the CD now. See what you've done?
But the vinyl's only the vinyl, because I didn't want to mess with the purity. But that has been remastered. Yeah, it sounds good. It's brought a little bit more to it. Nice. And it's always hard doing, like remastering an album that's been out for so long that's, they already sounded like pretty good. But so we just gave it a sort of a 2025 sort of like mastering to see if it's changes it in any way.
Nice. And of course, you've got another album that's out at the moment as well, which was the third in the trilogy. So you did Torpedo, and now you've got Black Red.
Yeah, actually, Torpedo was a single album, and then Black Red is the double album. And Torpedo was going to be a double album, and then I got cold feet thinking, maybe I'll do it another time. So I've always wanted to do a double album, but I know it's crazy in this in this current climate to do a double album. It's so old school prog rock, but I just always wanted to do it.
Love double albums.
Yeah, I thought, we've got the songs. I'm always writing. We're not short of material, as long as it's a really strong, listen, and not like all filler like a lot of albums, can be. Hopefully we achieve that. So Torpedo was kind of going to be that. So it feels like it's very connected, and a lot of the songs were written, similar time frame. Some, obviously a lot of it was during lockdown, and then I wrote a load of stuff afterwards. So it felt like they all kind of felt like they were part of the same musical journey. A Black Red, I guess, it's our first official double album. I think we did a B-side album that was a double album, but that doesn't really count, I guess.
No, that doesn't count.
I think
No.
this is our first double album. I probably won't do it again unless it was a live thing or something, because I feel as though I've ticked that box now.
Yeah, yeah. And I love Kerrang's actually said, if you're looking for a band to keep it real in a world of fakes, you could do a lot worse than to put it all on Feeder. I love that, because every song you do is raw and like it's just been done live.
Yeah, I mean, we try and do it like that, and the thing is, I love production, and I love, I get carried away in the studio. I mean, I'm a real,
Yeah.
I love recording, and I love, the producing and working out string parts and all that, and
Yeah.
I'm very much learnt by ear. I did play trumpet, but I don't, I'm more of an ear guy, so I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
add my way through some keyboard part that I can't, it'll take me 10 times longer than a really good keyboard player, but sometimes I like the kind of odd things you come up with, when you're not always the best thing, sometimes it's good to sort of, to pick something up and see what you can get out of it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It makes
absolutely.
it interesting, and, if it's a really difficult part I can't play, then I have to call someone I know. But in general, we've managed to do most of it ourselves. And, it's, I'm not sure if it comes across in a bad way, but, we make the music that we like, because that's the only way you can do it. And I think as I've got older, I've got even more and more like that. I'm less easily, pushed. There's always that danger. When you're a young
Yeah.
band, you got the label saying, "Can you write another Buck Rogers?" and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm not going to, or whatever. But
No.
I think you just got to write songs when they come naturally. I think when you force it, unless you're writing for for a specific artist, and someone says, "Can you write a song for him?" and you know what they do, that's different. But when you're writing in a band that you're in and it's part of you, you just have to do stuff that you like,
Yeah.
because if it doesn't do well, you go, so what? At least we like it.
At least you gave it a go. At least you gave it a
Yeah,
go.
otherwise you're compromising your art form a bit, and then
That's
if you compromise it and you do something you hate, and it doesn't do well, it's even worse. You don't even like the thing that you compromised doing. But we've always stuck to what we like, and we're very lucky that we have a lot of fans who seem to like what we do, and of course we care about what people think about the music. It's so important, and I do read reviews, and and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not, and and it hurts, but you just got to do what you believe in
Yeah.
and do the music that you like. That's the most important thing, and that's something which I feel even more strongly about as I get older.
Yeah, yeah. Some very good words of wisdom there, Grant. And you're heading to Australia, of course, in just a few weeks' time. I'm going to put the dates up on our podcast, but just quickly, you're heading to Perth on the 5th of April, Adelaide 6th, Melbourne on the 9th of April, Sydney on the 10th, and Brisbane on the 11th of April. So doing all the majors. Not coming to a little old Tassie, which is where I am, but never mind, next time.
Yeah, we'd stay long if we could. Yeah, because we're off to Japan after that. So we go in, and then
Yes.
and then we came back and doing a few things. And then we got the Comfort and Sound shows in September. We did 6 shows here. If that takes off and you want us back, we'll come back and do Comfort and Sound for you guys. But you know what? I mean, what I would say before I go is, we haven't been for 14 years, and it's not because we haven't wanted to come back. We love playing Australia, and we've had a great time there, and great audiences. It just hasn't worked out. It's either been a timing thing, or we didn't have a label there, we didn't a cost thing, and it is a long time, so we're almost like starting again, and we understand that. But what I would say, if you're thinking of coming to see us, come, because I don't know that it might be another 14 years if we're still even going to come back. Hopefully it won't be that long.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
We can build on this, but look, they're going to be intimate shows. We'll be playing some Black Red, and obviously we do some Feeder classics as well. So it won't be all new stuff. It'll be a nice mixture. Just want to have fun, everyone to have a great time, and that's what it's all about,
Yeah, fantastic. Look, Grant, thanks for spending your time here. It's been great, just sort of getting to know a little bit about the history of the band as well. I keep putting out the music that you're doing, because there's a formula that Feeder have, and it is absolutely killing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a formula, but that's kind of what we do, and I'm quite happy with it. I feel comfortable in that formula, I guess.
Love it.
It's part of us anyway. But look, I mean, thanks for the interview and come to see us.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah.
Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at The Long Way to the Top Podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.